Welcome back to Channel the Stoic Voice. Let us be honest, your current morning routine is alarm. Ignore alarm, ignore alarm. Fine, I am up, stare at the ceiling. Like you are waiting for God to text you. A reason to get out of bed, and then phone. Obviously, because apparently the ceiling did not have enough information. So now you are lying horizontal, not yet fully conscious. Scrolling through news that makes you anxious. Posts that make you feel behind. And opinions from people you have never met. About things that have nothing to do with your life. And you have been awake for approximately 90 seconds. Congratulations, you just let the entire internet win the first round of the day. Before your feet touch the floor, now you are in the shower, thinking about 17 things that have not happened yet. You are eating breakfast while mentally rehearsing a conversation you need to have that you have been avoiding for 2 weeks. You are driving to work or sitting at your desk already, carrying the full emotional weight of a day that technically has not started yet. And you wonder why by 10 o'clock in the morning, you feel like you have already lived an entire week. It is because you started the day at a deficit. You handed your most powerful minutes to everything except yourself, and now you are running the whole day on empty, trying to catch up to a version of you that never got the chance to show up. Here is what nobody tells you. Those first few minutes of the morning, the ones you are currently spending, arguing with an alarm clock and giving your brain to strangers on the internet, those minutes are the most valuable real estate in your entire day. Not because something magical happens in them, because they set the operating system for everything that comes after them. The words you say to yourself in the morning are not just words. They are instructions. They load into your mind before the day starts running on it. And they determine what you notice, how you respond, what you believe is possible, and how much of yourself you actually bring to the moments that matter. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius, a man running the most powerful empire on earth, started every single morning with a mental preparation practice before he let the day touch him. Seneca, one of the most influential thinkers in Roman history, wrote entire letters about the importance of owning your morning before anything else owned it. Epictetus, a man who literally owned nothing, understood that. What he said to himself first was the only real asset he had. None of them started their day by checking what strangers thought about things they could not control. They started it by talking to themselves, deliberately with intention, with the full understanding that the mind you bring to the day is the most important thing you bring. So today you are getting 10 words for your morning. 10 affirmations built on 2,000 years of Stoic philosophy, modern psychology, and the hard one. Wisdom of people who figured out how to actually live well, instead of just performing wellness on the internet. They are going to sound simple. Do not let that fool you. The simplest things are always the ones we most consistently fail to do, and the ones that change everything. When we finally start, put the phone down. Sit with this, give yourself the one thing you have been giving to everyone else. Since the moment you woke up, your own attention for the next few minutes. Finally, if this video is the first thing that has made your morning feel like it belongs to you in a very long time, comment below. I am taking my morning back. Number 1 today, I choose my response. Not my circumstances, my response. Quick warning before we start. Something is going to go sideways today. Not dramatically, hopefully, but something. A message that lands in exactly the wrong tone. A plan that makes it to about 11 in the morning, before reality completely dismantles it. A colleague who says something so spectacularly unhelpful that you spend the next 30 minutes in your head writing the perfect comeback you will absolutely never say out loud. That is not pessimism. That is just Tuesday. Life does not cooperate with scheduled plans. If it did, nobody would need meditation apps. Stress eating would not be a recognized coping strategy. And Monday mornings would not have that specific energy of everyone quietly wondering how it got bad so fast. So the question is never whether something difficult is going to arrive today. It is the only question is what happens in the space between when it arrives and when you respond to it. That space is small, embarrassingly small, in most people. The gap between trigger and reaction is so compressed that most people do not even know they have one. Someone says something, and they are already irritated. Before they have processed what was said, something goes wrong, and the panic is already running. Before any rational assessment of the situation has taken place, they are on autopilot, and autopilot is a perfectly good setting for driving a familiar route, but a catastrophic one for navigating a human life. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This man was enslaved. He had less control over his external circumstances than
They
almost
cannot
anyone
control
reading
what I
this
do
will
with it on
ever
the inside.
experience.
That is
And from
mine
that
always.
position of
Your
radical
response is yours
powerlessness,
always.
he built a
Even
philosophy
when it
that
does
has
not feel like
outlasted
it,
empires.
even when someone
His
has
entire
pushed
argument
exactly
was
the
this:
right button in
they can
exactly the
control
right
everything
sequence and the
outside me.
emotional
They
response
cannot
feels
control what I
completely
do with it on
automatic
the
and
inside.
completely
That
unavoidable.
is mine always.
There is
Your
still a
response is
space
yours
tiny
always,
requires
even
practice
when
to
it does
find
not
it, but
feel
it is
like it.
there.
Even when
And
someone
in
has
that
pushed
space is the
exactly the
difference
right
between
button,
a person
in
who is living
exactly
their
the right
day and a
sequence,
person who is
and
being
the
lived by
emotional
it.
response
Choosing
feels
your
completely
response does not
automatic
mean
and
choosing to feel
completely
nothing.
unavoidable.
It means
There is
choosing
still a
what you do with
space
what you
tiny,
feel.
requires
The
practice to
frustration can
find
be
it,
real and you
but
can
it is
still
there,
decide
and
not
in
to
that
fire
space
off the
is
message you
the
will
difference
regret by
between a
4 in the
person who is
afternoon.
living their day
The
and a
anxiety
person
can
who
be
is being
genuine and you
lived
can
by
still
it.
decide
Choosing
not
your
to let it make
response
the next
does not
decision
mean
for
choosing
you.
to feel nothing.
The anger
It
can be
means
completely
choosing what you do
justified
with
and you
what you
can still
feel.
decide
The
that right now is
frustration
not
can
the
be
moment to
real,
act from
and you
it.
can still decide
That is
not to
not
fire off the
suppression.
message.
That is the
You
most
will regret by
sophisticated
4 in
form
the
of power
afternoon.
available
The
to a human
anxiety can be
being.
genuine,
The
and you can
ability
still
to feel
decide
something
not
fully
to
and
let it
choose
make
your
the next
next move
decision.
anyway rather
For
than
you, the
letting the
anger can
feeling
be
choose it for
completely
you.
justified, and you
Marcus
can still
Aurelius
decide that
wrote,
right
"You have
now is
power
not
over
the
your
moment
mind, not
to act
outside
from it.
events."
That is not suppression.
Realize this
That
and
is
you
the
will
most
find strength.
sophisticated
He
form of
wrote this
power
while managing an
available to a
empire,
human
while
being:
dealing with
the
wars and
ability to
plagues and
feel
political
something fully
betrayal and the
and
daily
choose your next
reality
move
of being
anyway,
responsible
rather
for
than letting the
millions of
feeling
people.
choose it for you.
He still had to
Marcus
remind
Aurelius
himself
wrote,
every
"You
single
have
morning that
power
his
over your
power was
mind,
not in
not
controlling what
outside
happened.
events.
It was
Realize
in
this, and you
controlling
will
what he
find
did about
strength."
it.
He
If
wrote this
Marcus
while managing
Aurelius
an
needed that
empire,
reminder
while
before
dealing
running
with
Rome,
wars and
you are allowed
plagues
to
and
need it
political
before your
betrayal,
Tuesday.
and the daily
Say this
reality
one
of being
first every morning
responsible
before you
for
know what the
millions
day
of people.
contains.
He still had to
Before
remind
the plan
himself
has had a
every
chance
single
to be
morning
disrupted,
that his
before the
power was
difficult
not in
person has
controlling
said
what
the
happened.
difficult thing.
It was in controlling
Today
what
I
he did
choose
about
my
it. If
response, not
Marcus
my
Aurelius needed that
circumstances.
reminder
My
before running
response,
Rome,
say it like
you
you
are
mean
allowed to
it.
need it before
Because
your
on the
Tuesday.
days when
Say
something
this one
genuinely
first
tests
every
it,
morning,
you are going to
before you
need
know
to
what
have
the day
already
contains,
decided. You are
before the
stronger than
plan has had a
anything this
chance to
day
be
is going to
disrupted,
throw at you.
before the difficult
You have
person
already
has said the
proven that
difficult
every
thing.
single difficult
Today I
chapter
choose
you
my
survived
response,
without
not my
permanently falling
circumstances.
apart.
My response,
Every
say it like
moment
you
you
mean
held
it.
yourself
Because on
together
the
when
days when
falling
something
apart was the
genuinely
easier
tests
option.
it, you
That
are
strength
going
is
to
not luck.
need to have
It is
already
you.
decided
It
you are
has always
stronger than
been you.
anything.
And
This
it
day
begins
is going to
fresh
throw
every
at you.
morning the
You have
moment you
already
choose your
proven that
response before the
every
day
single
chooses it for you.
difficult chapter you
Walk into today
survived
knowing
without
that nothing
permanently
coming at
falling
you today
apart.
is bigger
Every
than the
moment
person
you
reading these
held
words right
yourself
now.
together when falling
Number
apart
2,
was
I
the
am not
easier option.
behind. I
That
am
strength
exactly
is
where my
not
journey
luck.
has
It
brought
is you. It
me.
has always been
Somewhere
you.
between your
And it
20s
begins
and right
fresh
now,
every
you
morning,
developed a
the
timeline.
moment you
You
choose
did
your
not
response before
consciously
the day
design it.
chooses it for
It
you.
assembled
Walk
itself
into
from
today
100 different
knowing that
sources.
nothing
What
coming
your
at you
parents
today
expected,
is bigger
what
than
your
the
friends
person
seemed to be
reading these words
achieving,
right
what
now.
social
Number
media
2,
presented as
I
the
am not
normal pace of
behind.
a
I am
successful adult
exactly
life.
where my journey has
What you
brought
told
me.
yourself at
Somewhere
22
between
when
your
you were
20s and right
optimistic about
now, you
timelines and
developed
had
a
not yet met
timeline.
the
You
specific
did not
combination
consciously
of
design it.
circumstances
It
that were
assembled
going to
itself from
rearrange your
100 different
original plan
sources: what your
entirely.
parents expected,
And now you
what your
carry this
friends seem
quiet,
to be achieving,
persistent,
what social
slightly
media
exhausting sense of
presented
being
is
late,
the
of
normal
running
pace
behind
of
a
a
schedule
successful
that
adult
everyone
life.
else seems
What
to
you
be
told
managing
yourself
to
at
keep,
22,
of being at a
when you were
point in your story
optimistic
that should have
about
been a chapter
timelines
ago.
and had
The
not yet
relationship
met
that was
the
supposed to
specific
exist by
combination
now,
of
the career that was
circumstances
supposed
that
to
were
be
going to
further along,
rearrange your
the
original
version of
plan
yourself that was
entirely.
supposed
And
to have
now you
figured
carry
more
this
of this out
quiet,
by this age.
persistent,
And
slightly
meanwhile,
exhausting
you are
sense of being
scrolling through
late,
people who
of
are
running
apparently
behind
achieving
a
everything on
schedule that
schedule and
everyone
wondering
else
what
seems to be
exactly you are
managing to
doing
keep,
wrong.
of being
Here is
at
what
a
you are
point in your
doing
story
wrong.
that should have been
You
a
are
chapter
comparing
ago.
your
The
real life to
relationship
other
that was
people's
supposed to
highlight
exist
reels
by
into an
now, the
imaginary
career
timeline
that
that
was
was
supposed to
designed
be
before
further
you knew what
along,
your
the
actual life
version
was going
of
to ask of
yourself
you.
that
That
was
is
supposed
not
to
a
have
fair
figured more of
comparison.
this out by
That
this
is not
age.
even a
And
coherent
meanwhile,
comparison.
you are
You are measuring a
scrolling through
real
people
complicated,
who are
genuinely lived human
apparently achieving
experience against a
everything
fantasy
on
that never
schedule
had to
and wondering
survive
what
contact
exactly
with
you are doing
reality.
wrong. Here is
The
what you are doing
fantasy
wrong.
never lost
You
anyone,
are comparing
never
your
had its
real
plans
life to
dismantled
other
by
people's
circumstances it could
highlight
not have
reels
predicted,
into an imaginary
never had to
timeline
rebuild from
that was
something that
designed
fell
before
apart,
you knew
never
what
had
your
to take the
actual
long
life was
route
going to
because the
ask of you.
direct one
That
turned
is
out
not
to
a
be
fair
closed.
comparison. That is
Of
not even
course,
a
the
coherent
fantasy looks
comparison.
more on
You are
schedule.
measuring a real, complicated, genuinely lived human experience against a fantasy that never had to survive contact with reality. The fantasy never lost anyone, never had its plans dismantled by circumstances it could not have predicted, never had to rebuild from something that fell apart, never had to take the long route because the direct one turned out to be closed. Of course, the fantasy looks more unscheduled,